Good morning, Motor Cars. It is Friday, March 9th, and we've got a couple birthdays, actually one birthday and one anniversary this weekend. The anniversary on the 10th, we have Michael Bruce, who is a Honda Valet, and then also on the 10th, we have Adam Apalka, who is at the Brunswick Car Wash. He's the manager over there, so happy birthday and happy anniversary. I'm in a good mood. Service reservations in February of this year were up about 8% over February of 2017, and again, February is all about comparing one year to the previous year because it's almost always a terrible month for people in our industry. We're also excited because our new Rainforest Car Wash in Medina is supposed to open this month. I've seen some pictures. Chuck just described it to me on the phone, and I hear it's spectacular, so that's definitely something to see once it opens. We're coming down to the wire also for our employee survey and need just about a half dozen more people to respond to get our results. This is very important to us. We use it to track your satisfaction and to look for ways to improve motor cars. So if you haven't filled that out, there'll be a reminder email that'll have your link in it. It's supposed to come out Friday and then another one on Monday. And if you've got a paper version of the survey, please get that in as soon as you possibly can. One of the other things I wanted to talk about a little bit was active shooters. This goes back to a conversation that Don Schaefer and I had about a seminar that he attended having to do with active shooters and the bigger conversation of business continuity and how to make sure things keep going and that we're safe and so on if a disaster happens of some kind. And I've got some notes having to do with some of the things that he learned at the active shooter conference or seminar that he went to. Now, however you feel about the whole thing about guns and so on, I mean, I personally feel that nobody should have guns except for me because I don't trust anybody. I don't trust any of you guys because you could all be space aliens and trying to turn me into a Happy Meal. But other than that, the biggest thing about all of these active shooters is how do you actually protect the folks that are in your building, and how do you make sure that customers are safe, employees are safe, managers are safe, and everybody's safe. So there's a document that they've actually got out that tells you a little bit about what you should do. One of the things that they talk about is the fact that you should be informed of what to do in case there's an active shooter. So they recommend that you sign up for active shooter training. If you see something odd, say something to a manager right away so that they can check it out too, and so you've got two eyes looking at whatever it happens to be. The other thing is to sign up to receive local emergency alerts and register your work and personal contact information with any work-sponsored alert system. In our particular case, that would be Stride, our new chat software, so that you can tell folks in other buildings without necessarily having to pick up a phone that something's going on in your building. Also be aware of your environment and any possible dangers. Always be aware of folks that come into the building if they're not people that you know. I mean, always smile and everything. It's potentially a customer, but these days there can be crazy folks coming in looking for money, looking for other things. The other thing is to make a plan. Sit down with your manager and figure out in advance where the safest place for you to be is and where you can direct customers to. So each individual building, you want to find a place that has a door that locks, if possible, a solid steel or wood door. Windows definitely out. You want some place where there's no windows so that people can't see that you're in there and so that people can't get at you from outside. As far as active shooters in your family goes, make a plan with your family. If there's anything that happens at places that you go, you should have a plan for what your family does in the case of an active shooter. You know, how do you tell where to meet if something like that happens and you have to scatter for some reason? How are you going to communicate with each other so that everybody knows what they do in advance? The other thing is, no matter where you are, be conscious of where the exits are anywhere you go and have an escape path in mind and identify places you could possibly hide. That's something you can do right now while you're listening to me. Just look around your workspace and see where you would hide. Over here in the BDC, we've got lots of places we could go potentially. We've got a couple of different rooms here where the servers and things are at that we could definitely go and hide and lock folks out. Our door is locked all the time and we're the only ones that have keys for just that reason, just to keep all the folks down here safe. And also understand the plans for individuals with disabilities and folks that might have different needs as far as getting in and out of the building so that you can plan for that kind of thing. If you've got a customer in your building that has a wheelchair, how are you going to help them get out? Also, while an active shooter is actually in the building, during the episode, run and escape if you possibly can. That's the most important thing. You need to get word out to the authorities, and the only way you can do that is if you're safe and away from the building. So as soon as you see something going on, the biggest thing is get the heck away from there if you possibly can. Leave your belongings behind. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Stuff is always replaceable. Help others escape if you can, but evacuate regardless of whether others agree to follow you or not. There may be other customers that just don't want to go with you. You can do what you can to try and get them out of there, but if they've decided that they leave, get out of there. Warn and prevent individuals from entering an area where the active shooter may be. The first thing you do when you get outside the building is say, hey, we have an active shooter inside, so that everybody that was headed into the building knows not to. Call 911 when you're safe and describe the shooter, the location, and also the weapons that they have. That's very important so that the police know who they're looking for when they get there. It's really important because they don't necessarily know who the shooter is. And the easier you make it for them to identify that person, the less likely anybody else is going to get hurt. Hide if you're not able to escape. Pick out a place that you can hide where nobody's going to see where you're at, whether it's under your desk, in a bathroom, someplace like that, even mop closets and things. Get out of the shooter's view and stay quiet. Silence all your electronic devices and make sure that they won't vibrate to give away your hiding location. Lock and block the doors, close the blinds, turn off all the lights. Don't hide in groups if possible. Spread out along the walls or hide separately to make it more difficult for the shooter to kill multiple people at once. Try to communicate with police silently through text messages or social media. Most police departments have a way that you can communicate with them via text on their website, or they have a text number that you can actually send things to. Become aware of what that is for our local area. Stay in place until law enforcement gives you the all clear. That's the safest thing you can possibly do. Your hiding place should be out of the shooter's view and provide protection if shots are fired in your direction by the police. Fighting is absolutely the last resort because, again, they're armed, you're not, or at least we assume you're not. And that's the thing that you want to do, absolutely last resort if there's nothing else you can do, is to fight with the active shooter. Commit to your actions and act as aggressively as possible against the attacker because chances are they're not expecting anybody to fight back. Recruit others to ambush the shooter if you possibly can with makeshift weapons like chairs, fire extinguishers, scissors, books, anything that you can use to throw at and distract and disarm the shooter. Be prepared to cause severe or lethal injury to the shooter. Chances are pretty good if they've got some kind of a weapon, they're not going to stop until they are physically unable to shoot at you. After the episode is over, keep your hands visible and empty. Again, this is so that when the police walk into the building, they know you're not the shooter, especially if they do not have a description of who the shooter is. You want to make sure that they don't identify you as a threat. Know that law enforcement's first task is to end the incident, and they may have to pass the injured along the way. So if somebody's hurt, their primary thing is to make sure that whoever that shooter is, they get taken down first. Follow law enforcement instructions to the letter and evacuate in the direction that they come from because that's likely to be the safest way out. Officers may be armed with rifles, shotguns, and other handguns and may use pepper spray or tear gas to control the situation, so be prepared for that. Officers will shout commands and may push individuals to the ground for their safety. Consider seeking professional help for you and your family to cope with the long-term effects of the trauma after it happens. So that's something a lot of folks don't necessarily anticipate. It is a very traumatic thing to have happen, and you may need to get counseling afterwards just so that you don't have nightmares and so that you don't dwell on it after it happens. As far as taking care of the wounded goes, take care of yourself first. It's that old airplane rule. Make sure that your mask is comfortably secured and everything before you help anybody else. You can't help somebody if you're actively bleeding all over them. So make sure that you take care of yourself and then help the wounded before the first responders arrive. If the injured are in immediate danger, help them get to safety. While you wait for first responders to arrive, provide first aid. Apply direct pressure to wounds and use tourniquets if you've been trained to do so. Turn wounded people onto their sides if they're unconscious and keep them warm. Anyway, an unpleasant subject, but one we definitely need to be prepared for in this day and age. Have a good weekend, Motorcar.